I want to thank you, but especially thank the Kingdom of Bahrain, His Majesty, His Royal Highness, and of course, our good friend Sheikh Khalid. I thought the speech last night by the Crown Prince was extraordinary. It was clear, it was concise, he had a very solid message, and most importantly, he didn't drone on for too long. I told the Crown Prince afterwards he would have no future as a Western politician. The theme of collective approaches to collective security is a very relevant and timely topic. Just this week, I had the chance to meet with other Euro-Atlantic colleagues together at NATO. We had a meeting of the Global Coalition to counter Daesh. We also met with Ashraf Ghani and Abdullah to get an update on the situation in Afghanistan, and then we had OSCE ministerial meetings in Basel, Switzerland. So it's been a very busy week, but there will be no prizes for guessing what the main topics of our conversations were throughout the week. The Russian Federation is dangerously undermining regional and global security with its violent incursions into Ukraine. This demands a global and a robust response. And then, closer to home, closer to where we are today, we have the advance of Daesh. We've already discussed the threat posed by this barbaric terrorist group, and we will discuss it more. I want to reflect a little on the broader problem, though, that I believe it represents. It strikes me that most of the challenges in this region are driven by the opposite of collective, collaborative approaches. And should I say wholeheartedly, I agree with His Royal Highness, who said yesterday, this is more of a theocratic, neo-fascist type phenomenon we're dealing with. Sectarianism and its dangerous rise in the Middle East comes in many forms. We have a Shia-Sunni divide, we have threats to the Kurds, threats to the ancient Iraqi Christian community, and the list goes on. The antidote to sectarianism and the key ingredient to lasting stability, in my judgment, is pluralism. And that is under siege as well. What is common in all of these divides is that they are being exploited to achieve regional and geopolitical ends with immense human costs. They are exploited by some sinister state actors who meddle in the state affairs of others for their own gain, as is too often the case with the state of Iran. Sectarianism is also exploited and emboldened by nefarious non-state actors, actors that wreak havoc across ungoverned expanses. We see this with Daesh, which has extended this divide across international borders, and we see it in some other militias as well. Commander Soleimani of Iran's Al-Quds Force has been organizing Shia militias in Iraq since before 2010, and is happy to publicize that fact with selfies in social media. An agent of terror styling himself as a hero. Daesh is clearly the very real and current sectarian threat that we are facing here. But we cannot lose sight of the potential for those sectarian Shia militias to rival it. Of course, the threat to sectarianism not only transcends the borders within the region, it transcends those between this region and others. That's why Canada has made the Middle East a top foreign policy priority, and why I take every opportunity to visit the Gulf and the wider region. If you look at a two-dimensional map, maybe that doesn't make much sense, but if you could somehow visualize the live geolocation of all the tweets, the financial transactions, the energy exports, the flight paths, suddenly the globe looks much, much smaller. And so what happens in the Middle East reverberates across the globe. A couple of months ago, the Halifax Security Forum commissioned a poll in dozens of countries. It found that a clear majority of people believed that the world is a more dangerous place now than it was just a year ago. Even 82% of those asked in Canada agreed with that. And that was before the two terrorist-inspired attacks against soldiers on our own soil and in the halls of our nation's parliament. At the same time as the world gets smaller, and to some extent, because of it, the world also feels more dangerous. The urgency of collective action couldn't be higher. These threats are common to all of us, and I believe we must tackle them together based on common principles. I'm proud that Canada is standing shoulder to shoulder with many others in the fight against extremism, terrorism, and sectarianism. When I was in the UAE last month, I reflected that in the wars of my adult lifetime, we have been allies in every single conflict, some 6. We are fighting Daesh not just through military support, but by working with regional partners like our hosts here in Bahrain. to stem the flow of terrorist financing, and just as importantly, foreign fighters. We know that our security and our prosperity are intrinsically connected to the security and prosperity of others in the region and around the world. The most effective response to a threat is not just to build bigger walls, but to get out there and work on reducing the threat itself. The same is true of our economies. Canada is very blessed by geography and its resources. But we know that true long-term strength comes from being a networked, outward-facing, free-trading nation. Countries that empower their people with opportunities, that see them as citizens rather than just subjects, will benefit from the dynamism of prosperity that is unleashed. In this region, the discovery of black gold fueled a boom of infrastructure and economic development. At the same time, Soviet philosophy found influence among some political movements. But long-term prosperity in these insecure times will require a shift of thinking, from the distribution of capital to the creation of it, just as pluralism is the antidote to sectarianism in the social sphere. Greater diversity in the economic sphere is a strength, not a weakness. We have seen how the rise of Daesh earlier this year contributed to volatility in energy markets. Despite recent falls in oil prices, the IEA has warned in its World Energy Outlook that we should all be aware of supply complacency. That means not allowing a short-term picture of a well-supplied oil market to obscure future energy demand challenges, and an over-reliance on a relatively small number of producers. In other words, it's not easy to keep balance in an increasingly unstable world if you're only standing on one foot. I began by talking about the need for a collective approach to the security challenge posed by Daesh and also by the Russian Federation. As I conclude, let me reaffirm that we can't tackle the long-term threat posed by extremism and sectarianism with military might alone. And you cannot fight sectarianism with sectarianism any more than you can fight fire with fire. In our hyper-connected world where information and perceptions flow rapidly, the battlefield is increasingly in the mind. We all have to do much more to counter poisonous narratives, the narratives that say sectarianism and nationalism are the only ways for our citizens to be and to feel secure. Our narrative is that we can achieve in a more secure, stable world by working together to fight terror, to fight a neo-fascist theology, wherever or however it emerges. A world where trade and economic prosperity are the surest path to a better and brighter future, where freedom, democracy, human rights, and the rule of law are protected. And I look forward to discussing further how we can make this happen in this forum and beyond. Thank you very much.